of the Stuart Municipal Utilities. We'll begin with roll call. Kim? Here. Craig? Here. John?
Here.
Shirley?
Here.
Corey? Here. Item 3, agenda approval. Item 4, consent agenda, minutes of the regular meeting from 10/14/21, financial statement as of 10/31/21, and bills as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kim, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Shirley. John, how do you vote?
Aye.
Shirley?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
Corey? Aye.
Pat, you're still squeezing them down to one page.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Do the best I can to make it smaller all the time.
Item 5, 2021 elevated water storage tank project. A public hearing on proposed plans and specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 elevated water storage tank project. And item B, resolution number 21-07U, resolution finally approving and confirming specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2021 elevated water storage tank project.
I got nothing at the office for the public hearing, so we're good there.
Okay, so does that put us right down to where we want?
Yep, and if no one in the crowd has anything to say, then we're good.
Is there any- right? All right, so then we can have a motion for that resolution?
Yep.
We have a motion, please? Motion by Shirley, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by John. Kim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Shirley?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Corey? Aye. Item 6, DGR Engineering, Commercial Card Chargers Presentation. Andy Cobb. Thanks, Andy.
Hold on, are we good?
Yeah.
Good, okay. You're on TV. All right. That's why I like to be. Forgot the word. Not this face. Good evening, Andy Koob, Project Manager, DGR Engineering. So wanted to bring a couple things to your attention tonight. What I'm actually presenting on is an electric system study that will look at these car charging presentations. But before we get into that, I want to give you a little bit of background of kind of how we got here in terms of electrical projects. So 2 to 3 years ago, the utility took on a large overhead to underground and voltage conversion project on the north part of town. The budget for that and the costs were around roughly the $3 million range. There are some bond fund dollars left over for that because some of our bids came in significantly under budget. Pat and the staff continue to work what we call the meter cutover portion of that, and he expects that to be done sometime in roughly the fall of 2022. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. Voltage conversion, there's no longer going to be any what we call 4.16 kV distribution on your system, which means one of the things we looked at was what to do with the old power plant here. The board executed an agreement with us for a preliminary design phase to look at what bypassing the power plant would look like. So with the status of Pat's work, we are still in that preliminary design phase because we can't do any physical construction work on that project before Pat and his crew get the rest of the meter cut over done. The budget for that project was roughly $1.25 million at the high level. We haven't narrowed that down yet, but that's been built in and all of Blair's work, great work that he's done for you in the past. So that brings us to the task order in front of you tonight. So what we have is task order number 6, and that is the electric system study and capital improvements plan. So one of the things that Pat and I had talked about as we were looking at bypassing the power plant is, are we sure this is the right long-term decision? Is this where we put our dollars based on where we're at as an electric utility? Subsequently, we have an idea that some of the businesses here on I-80 that are in your service territory are looking at putting in some car charging systems for electric vehicles that are going to be at the level that they're going to add a significant amount of electric load to your system. So at that point, Pat and I thought that it's time to take a step back and maybe look at the overall performance of your electric system, especially with how the addition of these loads down south are going to impact the performance of your electric system. So the end deliverable task order is going to be a 10-year capital improvements plan, where not only do we determine what, if anything, we need to do to your system to accommodate those new commercial grade car chargers, but also are there other areas on the system that we're missing? And I guess I can couch it as we want to make sure we're not missing the elephant in the room. Let's not race to put all our money here and, by the way, the board has this big expenditure coming down the line for 2 years that we didn't catch. So I would be back to present a formal report to you if that's what Pat desires. And really, it's a 10-year roadmap of what those electric utilities expenditures would look like, phased out accordingly for the next few years. I can summarize it the best by saying we look for weaknesses in your system, and then we come up with solutions to fix those weaknesses, and that's how we develop that 10-year roadmap. Any questions for me?
Any questions for me?
Andy, do you see more use of these type of car chargers? I mean, we've got an interstate, outlet out here. An interstate. And I anticipate the stations out there, and maybe even more, will want more and more of these as time goes on. I mean, is that, if we take this on now, is it something we can add to or increase our capacity as time goes on?
For sure. So we can look at it as a staged approach where what would it look like if Come and Go adds chargers? What would it look like if McDonald's adds chargers, the hotel? We could certainly look at that across the board at varying levels and plan for that accordingly. One of the unique things about Stuart, I think that's different than some of our other municipal clients, is being right on I-80. This is a spot where they could certainly put in those big car charging stations. Because two of the big items that keep people from purchasing electric vehicles is, number one, they're really unfamiliar with them, right? I'm used to putting gas in my car and I want it to go. And number two, I don't have to want to worry about how far I can go. We call that range anxiety. So by having car charging stations here along I-80, those people rip off I-80, come in, charge their vehicle for 15 minutes for a full charge, maybe spend some money in Stuart, and then away they go. So you're correct. Stuart is certainly positioned at a point where those car charging systems could become reality sooner than later.
I've always said that we're in small town Iowa, like hundreds of other small towns. Really, the only thing we got to hang our hat on is the interstate. And I remember when McDonald's opened up. I was on the Chamber of Commerce thing. The night before they had the grand opening, McDonald's had the chamber out, and gave us burgers and fries and that kind of stuff. And my boss, Jim Belden, we were sitting with the regional director for McDonald's who had made the land purchase there. And he was the one instrumental in putting the McDonald's where it's at. And Jim asked him, he said, "Why did you choose Stuart?" At the time, it was the only McDonald's between Des Moines and Omaha. And he said, "Why did you choose Stuart?" And he said, "This is going to sound silly, but it's because you have flat entrance and exit ramps from and to the interstate." He said, "Everywhere else, you either have to go up or you have to go down. But Stuart," and he said, "our market research," and McDonald's does pretty good market research. He said, "Our market research tells us that people perceive that to be a shorter on and off. So, I think there's a lot of potential here, and once we start down this road, I think and yeah, the costs are gonna be significant. I think you realize that, but the revenue is gonna be significant too. So I think that's what we need to look at here, so.
Schedule wise, I think that's probably a question you're all asking is,
Yeah,
when would I be back here? Right around that 9 months to a year is typically how long it takes for a study of this nature. And that simply just has to do with all of the acquisition of data that we have to do and then the actual analysis of your system solutions.
So you check all the power loads out there.
That's correct. One of the most important things we'll look at is you want to make sure that the additions of these electrical loads that are large, they don't impact your other customers. When someone goes and plugs in there, you have three vehicles out there all charging at the same time, you don't want the lights in City Hall to go brown or something like that. And that's something that we look at.
well, I think, Pat, you had mentioned something earlier that, and I don't know if this will have an impact on it, if our study and our actions here will have an impact on that. But you were having problems going after or repairing or changing some of our infrastructure out there, and you said it's getting to be like a spider web, like a mouse maze out there. And you,
Yeah, we've had to have some of it moved around for different reasons, different customers that are expanding, and we're having to kind of move our electrical system accordingly. And it's not particularly the way I would like to see it. I know it's not right. And that would be something that can be included with all this. We could get a lot of
yeah,
these.
is that something we could put
This
in that
would,
study?
this would cure quite a few ways, basically out there, especially by the just things that we've had to have moved by other businesses and stuff.
Yeah, our study could certainly,
Okay.
if Pat has to move something, our study will certainly show him the results that, okay, Pat, if you have to move this, we'd like you to do this.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been stubborn and don't want to move nothing. And there's an impact on that too, so.
But we gotta keep the guys busy.
So we're looking at a fee here of $27,800. I don't know if everybody's comfortable to vote on that this evening, or if you guys need time to digest everything and figure it until next meeting.
I think the sooner we get started, the sooner we get answers for it, so that's not a bad price. I'll make a motion that we accept this and move down the road.
We got a motion by John. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Kim, how do you vote?
I,
Craig?
Aye.
Shirley?
Aye.
John?
Aye,
Corey? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Item 7, city administrator reports.
Okay. As far as the financials go, Ash will be back next week if you guys have questions. So if we can begin on the delinquent accounts report. We should have a total of 5 changes. And they can be seen on page 1, 2, and 4. So that takes us to our delinquent accounts paid in full, and we do have one. And that can be seen on page 6. And that takes us to our next reports, which is our payment agreements. And we only had one addition this month. And that will take us to our paid in full payment agreements. There are 4 changes, beginning on page 1, page 2, and the 4th one on page 3. For budget building, we had no changes. Everybody's doing pretty good on their budgets. Uncollectible, no changes there. And then for collected by the state of Iowa offset program, we did add one this month. It's not listed on there, but we did have one that we collected from. And that takes us to the end of the reports.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Is there any questions? Reports? Well, moving down to item 8, public forum.
I'll just, Chip Schultz with Northland, and maybe Jeff has a couple items to add, but I just wanted to update the board on what we're looking at for a timeline for the water revenue project notes, the short term that'll be taken out by USDA. There's a timeline at your desk that looks like this. And what's attached is Jeff had provided a cost update as of November 9th. You may have that already, but I kind of wanted to get that to the board in one packet. What's attached after that is the current expected sizing for the financing, funding both the water tower and the water distribution system improvements. And Jeff, you had, did you have a meeting with bidders was that on the 16th?
No, we have not done that yet because we're waiting for USDA to say go.
Okay.
And so once USDA gets the information from your attorney, then it's going to take them just a few days to say go. At that time, I will be talking to Pat and Chip and everybody else that needs to be at the table, and we will set a date to advertise for bids. We'll set a date for a pre-bid showing and also a bid letting. And then we may ask you to have a special meeting, depending on how that falls with your meeting schedule, to award that contract. So those dates cannot be set until USDA says go. So that's where we're at right now, is waiting for that to happen.
What are the items that that Melissa has to complete? Is there anything I can help out with?
Basically, it's the right-of-way certifications that say that the board has and the city have full authority to do the construction that we have proposed.
Okay.
And they're waiting on the abstract to get updated on where they vacated the right-of-way to city property at the end of where the water tower will be. And the attorney wanted to see that abstract before she was willing to sign the certification. So
I think that, Matt, you might be able to shed some light here, but I think that the city council approved the location contingent upon the insurance company saying it was okay to do that. I happened to talk to Lon the other day, and he said the insurance company is gonna come back to you, Jeff, and, you know, if you think it looks okay, they're gonna be okay with it too. So,
well, I think the plat has already been filed, so I think we might be past that step.
oh, okay, good.
I'm not 100% certain that I won't still get a phone call, but it's just a matter of getting that abstract updated. It was the last I understood.
What's also there too is there's some items you might already have copies of. It's just, so there's a sample of the USDA letter of conditions. And then the back item is ultimately what we'll get from USDA that provides the USDA commitment to taking out or paying off the short-term water revenue debt. It's a sample document from the city of Malvern. Yours will be very similar to that. So when do you think your letting will be?
Well, okay.
Was planned to be November 3rd.
If let's just say that here we are on Thursday before Thanksgiving. Let's say that sometime early next week, the pieces come together and the attorney gets the information from USDA. Then we've got the holiday weekend. If USDA says go on Monday, what's Monday, the 29th, then I would be talking to people, and that's going to be awkward timing because of Christmas. And so while I push as hard as we can, to make sure we don't let Christmas get in the way for the contractors who are considering their bids and everything. We'll just, all I can do is speculate right now. It just really depends, what day they say go. If they would get, and USDA says go on Monday before Thanksgiving, to get a bid in before Christmas, but we need to give those contractors at least 3 weeks. 2.5 to 3 weeks would be the minimum to give them time to consider their bids, from the time we advertise till the bid letting. So it really, I've looked at the calendar back and forth, and it really just depends on when they say go.
Do you think it'd be wise for us if the timing was right and before our next meeting, you think it'd be appropriate for us to have a special meeting, Jeff? Would that be?
I don't think you'll
wise for
need
us to
one
do that?
before the December meeting, but you may well need one between December and January,
Okay.
depending on, again, when. I could guess 20 different options right now, but none of them mean anything until they say go.
Melissa really needs to, just put it politely.
Maybe you can call her, give her a call. and
I won't do-
encourage her.
I will now, but I wouldn't do that unless you told me to, so I will. So the other part to just be cognizant of is sizing or determining the principal amount of the short-term debt without having bids for either of the two projects in hand. I think it might work out such that that's the scenario. So still good with the estimate?
Those are
Based
the
on-
best estimates we can come up with. Today's bid market is very volatile. And so, while we think those are good, as far as not being too low, I won't know for certain until bid day. So.
Something to think carefully about, so. There's a lot of contingency that's built in there too, so that's
There
encouraging.
is. There
Over
is.
$500,000, so. Anyway, any questions? I'm just here to update the board.
No, I appreciate the updates. It's good to hear.
That is good information.
Okay. Anything else, Jeff?
That's why I was here, just to see what questions there might be. So if anyone has any other questions for me, I'd take those now, but.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, we're good right now. Appreciate both of you being here.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Dave.
Forum, like I mentioned earlier, I am officially moving out of town December 27th. It's my understanding that I have to live in city limits to serve on the board. So,
Mike, is that the case?
I can definitely look at it.
Yeah, let's look at that. Maybe you just as soon bail out.
the property that we're building on is just 2.5 miles from town. We live temporarily within laws, 10 miles from town. I have to be out of the house at some point, so.
So you get your Christmas there, that's it.
That's it. That's hurrah. So I just wanted to inform you. Any other items on the form? All right, thank you. Meeting adjourned.